Are you looking for a book where you have no idea what's going on in it? A book where, as you continue reading, any questions that you get answered are answered with more questions. A book where you're literally going through saying, what the hell is going on? Then boy, do I have a book for you. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and today I'm going to be doing a review of The Girl and the Stars by Mark Lawrence. This is book one in the Book of the Ice trilogy, and this is the first Mark Lawrence book that I have actually read personally. Now, the Book of the Ice trilogy takes place in the same world as the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, which is arguably Mark Lawrence's most popular trilogy. But from what I can gather, this being the only book of his that I've read thus far, the crossover and the Easter eggs and things, at least at this point, are almost none. There may be a little bit of things, but from what I've seen from other reviews, there are no real crossovers as of yet. The Girl and the Stars takes place in the far north, like almost the polar ends of this world. So think of our Arctic Circle, where just ice for days. The warm season is still below freezing. There's never ending ice. Now in this northern region, there are these four major tribes, and they all, for the most part, live separately from each other, but they do eventually come together every 4 years to kind of have this celebration. They do this specific ceremony and kind of trade between the tribes. Now this is the brutal world of ice, and so the tribes value strength above all else. Now strength in this instance means more survival and survivability, to withstand the cold, to pull your own weight, to help. There's very much a loss of self for favor of what's best for the tribe as a whole. Now, like I said, every 4 years, the tribes come together and there's this specific ceremony that's performed. The ceremony involves a priest where all the children line up, and he goes through one by one and pretty much just visually inspects them and is able to detect weakness in them. Weakness, like I said, is either too slow, they can't withstand the cold as well as others. Really, any weakness, any perceived weakness, causes them to basically fail. Now, failure in this instance, this is where things get real crazy. This ceremony is performed around this giant bottomless pit. And if you're perceived as having weakness, the priest just straight up throws you into the pit. Just straight away. No ceremony, no nothing. Just, nope, there you go. Now, I believe the youngest you would be participating in this ceremony is generally around age 8. And you have to go through 2 ceremonies to be considered an adult. So generally, you're considered an adult sometime between the ages of 12 and 16. This book follows our main character, Yaz. And Yaz is a girl who, from a very young age, knew that she was going to get thrown into the pit. She just knew instinctually that she wasn't strong enough, she wasn't fast enough, she couldn't withstand the cold. She knew this in her heart, but never said anything, never dealt with that. She just knew deep down, eventually I'm getting thrown into this pit. Now, the tribe that Yaz is a part of is the northernmost tribe. They go literally the pole of this world. And specifically, her tribe is generally regarded, especially amongst themselves, they pride themselves on being the strongest tribe of all. They have very little children that actually do get thrown into the pit. They're also the smallest tribe, but Yaz was able to basically just compare herself to her family and other people in her tribe and just know instinctively, I'm not as strong as them, I'm not as fast as them, I tire more easily, I'm going to fail this trial. Now, Yaz is 16, I believe, which is considered very old for a child. And she actually already has a boy that's courting her that wants her to basically marry her. But she herself is like, he's not going to ask me because I'm not officially an adult yet. I still have to go through this last trial. But in the back of her mind, she knows that's never going to happen. I'm getting thrown in. The story takes place with Yaz getting thrown down the pit. And at that point, things start getting real crazy. And I don't want to get into a lot of that because pretty much from that point on, it's full spoilers. So, some pros for this book, and here's why you should read this book. The setting is fascinating, not just that brutal world of ice, but also everything that happens forward. These questions kept popping up in my mind as I was reading, and that's what was driving me to continue reading. Was I needed to find out about this world. I needed to get these answers. The layers of mystery in this world building, much like, an onion where you pull back the layers and there's just more layers and more and more. And every time I got a question answered about something, I usually ended up with 2 more questions about, okay, well, what does that mean? What's going on? The other thing I really enjoyed about this book is the magic that was in this. It was very simple, it seemed, but very effective. The magic was almost categorical, where you have these specific types of powers and you're going to fall into one of those, and that's pretty much it, at least at the beginning. You don't know a lot about it. You don't know where the powers come from. You don't know anything of that. They just, as it's introduced, you say, okay, cool. You have this type of person, this type of person, this type of person, and you go from there. So here are the cons. Now, since reading this book, I have learned Yaz is actually a Turkish name. I thought this was a completely made up name while I was reading it. So every single time her name is mentioned, and she's the main character, so it's mentioned a lot, I just, in my mind's going, Yaz! Yaz! It just ruined my immersion. Another thing that bothered me was, all of a sudden, Yaz is like in the middle of like this like 3-pronged love triangle, love square? I don't know. There's like a love square, I guess, and it feels like it comes out of nowhere. There's zero setup, but all of a sudden she's just attached herself to these 3 people, and you're just like, I mean, okay, I guess you have some type of love interest here. There's literally zero setup for 2 out of 3. The last con that I had is this book is just massive setup for the trilogy, which is fine. However, this being the first book and this being the only book that's available in this trilogy, it was almost disappointing, where I don't think a single plot thread was resolved at all. You've got these many different factions in this story to where everybody's playing at their own angle, so you have this little conflict here, little conflict here, little conflict here, and you're not 100% sure what the overall plot is in general. You don't know where the story's going. But then the book just ends and you're just like, oh, cool. So I got 0 answers. Actually, no, we ended the book with a massive, massive question all of a sudden. I think you're okay going into this book, especially this was my first Mark Lawrence book, like I said. I had 0 problems reading it. I was actually fascinated. I was constantly thinking about it, like trying to piece together these little bits and figure out how they all fit together. But knowing that this book is set up for the trilogy, going into that, knowing that, probably will help you a whole lot better accept what's going on. So overall, I'd say this book was a 4. I did enjoy it. Got frustrated by not getting those answers, but if you go into this knowing that, like I said, it'll make not having those answers a whole lot better. I love the uniqueness of the setting where they talk about molten ice, which is water. Everything's built around ice. And it just felt, the setting itself is what's driven me to want to continue this. The title for the second book in this trilogy was just announced, and it's The Girl in the Mountain, which makes me very curious where this is going to go, because in the book you find out what the mountain is, but I'm very excited to see what answers we get from that second book. So there you have it. That's my review for The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. Comment down below if you've read it. If you haven't, if you've read other Mark Lawrence books, let me know which ones you've read and which ones you liked. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and I'll see you next time.